Avengers Infinite Wars Chapter 17. Liberation of Rylth. You've been busy here, Pietro. Cap noted, walking through the liberated city of Nabbit with Pietro. Clones and Twi'lek citizens alike were doing their best to clean up the mess caused by the separatist forces. The joint effort made things rather fine. The scars of what occurred are still present, but over time they'll heal from all the hurt and suffering. There were many Twi'leks that paused in their work and gave Pietro beaming smiles and waves, with a few of the women none too shy about giving him more incorrigible glances. You can say that, Cap, Pietro remarked, waggling his brows at a few ladies when someone wrapped his arms around his shoulders. There you are, Speedy. Hey, Grit. Pietro grinned, recognizing the clone sergeant immediately. The boys have been looking for you. Where'd you up and run off to? Ah, just catching up with my own commanding officer, so to speak, Pietro said, nodding his head over to Cap. Grit looked by the man beside the resident speedster, and took note of the Avengers' appearance. Holding out his hand, the clone smiled. So you're this Captain America he told us about. Grasping the clone's hand, Steve shook it with a returning smile. A pleasure to meet you. Grit was it. How do you know this troublemaker? Saved our hides a good number of times since you wound up on this planet. After that long, had to at least get to know him if you were friend or foe. Though with me helping you lot out every day, surprised you didn't consider the former right away. Doesn't help if one can't be too careful. Couldn't agree with you more, came Steve's response, agreeing with the clone's words. With what happened back on Earth with Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., the first Avenger had to be more careful on who to interact and trust. Still, it's good to know Pietro was in good company down here. The 71st owes Pietro with our lives, Grit said in complete seriousness. If it weren't for him, we would have been completely wiped from the face of this galaxy. Pietro grinned bashfully, making Steve smirk and pat the runner's shoulder. So then what's next, Cap? Pietro asked. Well, first things first, we have to finish our job here on Rylth, Steve said. There's still a lot of villages under separatist control, and there's the capital city that needs to be retaken. Lesu, Grit said, getting a nod out of Rogers. Right, Lesu. Pietro shuffled his feet a bit, eyes gazing down to the ground. Something wrong, Pietro? Just wanna know if is Wanda. Steve sighed. We haven't found her yet, so I can't confirm nor deny if she's safe and well. Pietro only hung his head dejectedly. We still haven't found Natterviz either, Steve added on. The 6 of us here on Rylth is the team so far. That's good, that's good, the Sokovian muttered before earning a chuckle. Knowing our 2 girls, they're stubborn in their own way. Neither will go down that easily without a fight. And Vision, Pietro chortled. Don't know anything that could take him down. No doubt. I have a hard time imagining who or what can beat him. Sergeant Grit, Maximoff. The 3 men turned to see another clone, this one sporting a shoulder pauldron with brown armor paint. Captain Keeley. Grit saluted his superior officer. Been looking for you too, Keeley said, making the rounds on the boys. We're all good here, Keeley, Pietro said with a 2-finger salute. Just introducing Grit here to Cap. The Captain Rogers you spoke of, Keeley said with clear intrigue. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Speedy here never shut up about you and the rest of your team. And what has he said about us? Nothing but good things really. Stories too. Oh? Is that all? Pietro had to look away when Steve spoke those words, whistling a little, knowing he's gonna get in trouble now. Well, Keeley gave the speedster a sly look. There are the many times he said it how hopeless and lost the Avengers had been without him. Something about him being a shining beacon of leadership, right, Pietro? There it is, Steve said knowingly. You know, you're lucky that we haven't found Wanda yet. She would show these guys the pecking order between you and her. The speedster in the room hung his head at this. If it makes it feel any better, a lot of us thought his details were too exaggerated and were voodoo. There's one thing I wanna know. Grit spoke up. Is it true that killer robot that lifted an entire city from your home planet and wanted to use it as a meteor? Steve blinked. You told him that. It was a good story. You know, maybe most of Pietro's stories weren't as exaggerated as you think, Steve mused, considering our line of work. Wait, that was real, Keeley said in disbelief. More than you'd like to think. Steve sighed, grimacing at the battle that left a crater in the earth to remind everyone what had happened due to the Avengers' own actions. Now I gotta know the whole story. Grit couldn't help but say aloud. Steve nodded in understanding, seeing the enthusiasm on the clone's face. Alright, so you may want to sit down for this one. What began as an audience of 2, soon grew to more of the 71st Legion finding out about this story, the Twi'leks nearby and other clone troopers who caught wind of Pietro and Steve's tale of their encounter with Ultron. A droid that thinks like a person, Grit said with a shudder. Bad enough those clankers are mindless. A sentiment that was shared by the clones and the 2 Avengers. Well, we lucked out with Vision, Pietro said. So they're not all bad. Scene cut. Inside of the war room at the Resistance base on Ryloth, the heads of the current groups were present, from the GD generals, the clone commanders, to the Avengers. Others, however, weren't present but were seen via hologram. And what's your progress, Skywalker? Spoke Palpatine from his office at Coruscant. My fighters have control of the space around Ryloth. Anakin responded from the Resolute. We have the Separatist cruisers on the run. Very good, General Skywalker. Very good indeed. Stepping forward, Mace Windu had the projection of Ryloth come up. Through our efforts so far, we have been able to retake the southern hemisphere. Master Kenobi has just finished securing the Jixuan desert. Then, it is almost over. The Ryloth Senator, Freeta, spoke in relief in his voice. Not just yet, Senator, Mace said. The capital city of Lesu is the last stronghold of the Separatist presence on Ryloth. Our spies believe that Separatist leader Watts Hamber has his command center there. Master Yoda, who was present via hologram, spoke on this matter. When taking the city we have captured Hamber we must. And the first time in this meeting, Cham Syndulla spoke. It's not going to be easy. Tamber has chosen his stronghold well. Too well, in fact. You would know this well enough, Cham. Free couldn't help, but said with a rather low undertone of hostility. Better than you would, Senator Taw. Cham said with a sneer. While you were busy sitting comfortably and away from the war, I have been down here with my people fighting tooth and nail to keep the Separatists from taking this planet. Prior to the meeting present, the Avengers and some of the GD were informed of the political rivalry between Cham and Free. It was mediocre prior to the Clone Wars, but now it grew to new lengths. Cham had voiced his concerns with Freeta's plans for his planet once the war was over, and some of the Avengers were either indifferent from not knowing the full scope of things, i.e. Scott, to sharing the rebel leader's sympathize. Coughing into his hand, Mace got Cham to realize they were getting off track. Cham huffed, returning his attention to the holomap of Lesu. The only thing keeping us away from properly taking back the capital is the plasma bridge. A hologram of Lesu before it zoomed in at the large crevice separating the mainland with the capital. It's the only way in or out, with the controls kept at the city itself. Chancellor Palpatine sighed. I'm afraid his eyes could drag on indefinitely. We can't prolong this battle any longer. Freeta said somewhat desperately. My people have suffered enough. On that, the two of us can agree on. Cham stated. With my forces and the Republic troopers here, we can storm Lesu and free Ryloth at long last. But there is one thing that concerns me, Windu said, pointing to the map. And that's the Twi'lek settlements here on the outskirts of the city. Indeed, Yoda said. Risk the Twi'leks we do, from frontal assault. Then what do you suggest we do, Master GD? Cham asked somewhat impatiently. My people continue to suffer under these droids the longer we stand here and plan our attack. Don't forget about us, Mr. Syndulla. Steve spoke up. My men and I can be sent out to either retaking the capital or help guard the settlements. Even with your skills, you are still limited. Not with all 6 of us leading the assault. Steve said confidently. Just the 6 of you? Cham said, slightly unsure. I am aware of your capabilities, Captain Rogers, don't get me wrong. Pietro has shown this capacity to his fullest, but a 6-man team may not be enough to take back my home. You let us help retake the city while the Republic forces help guard the settlements. Mace Windu folded his arms. At least our forces aren't stretched so thinly or else retaking Lesu would be more difficult. He then adopted a thinking pose. The amount we have could definitely help defend the areas in case the Separatists plan on attacking them in retaliation if we go right at Lesu. They're heavily reinforced. Cham mused, taking note of the many battlements and garrisons stationed around the city. Hasn't stopped us before. Rhodey commented with a chuckle. If we are to take the city, we're gonna need to take a page out of Pietro's book. Steve said, nodding to Maximoff. Oh, and which page and from what section are you talking about? Hard and fast. That's what she... Shut up, Pietro. Come on, Hope, that was so easy. Exactly. It was too easy. Make a little more effort next time. Steve rolled his eyes at their antics while others in the room questioned at the earthen humor behind the banter. Scene cut. Walking through the encampment, Cham was conversing with Mace and Steve. My people have been holding out for a long time, Master Windu. Cham said with a tired expression. Your GD Master Dai and his clones have been helping us, but life has been difficult since the war came to Ryalth. You have done much better than most, Syndulla, Mace stated. Providing for your men, for all your people. We need all the help we can in liberating your planet from the Separatists. Cham silently regarded Mace before looking to Steve. I should be thanking you, Captain Rogers. Your Avenger Pietro Maximoff has been a major source of inspiration and hope for my people. Has it not been for him, I believe my people's suffering would have been much worse off. Before Steve could answer, several Twi'lek children ran by, each of their rags sporting crudely drawn lightning bolts, as each of them tried to outrun one another. One lightly green-skinned girl had tripped on her feet, causing Cham to come up to her and help her up. Hera, you should be more careful. I know, father. Hera said, though she appeared no worse for wear, only eager to rejoin her friends. That doesn't fully cut it, my dear. I just want you to be safe and not get hurt. This place is getting more crowded by the day, which you might hurt someone else as you play on accident. Hera nodded in understanding, making Cham patted her on the head, nudging her to go back to playing with her friends a moment later. Pietro Maximoff will be remembered for a long time on this planet, Captain Rogers. Cham said, watching his daughter play with the other children. The kids view him as a true hero. Don't let him hear you say that, Steve said in good humor. He has a big enough head, is it? Cham chortled. From what I can tell, you might be right. His ego will grow more and more if that were to happen. Their conversation was soon ended when Mace received a comm call from his first-in-command. Answering the call, Mace held out his hand, and a holo transmission of Pons appeared. Commander Pons, Mace greeted. How goes your campaign? We've hit a serious snag, General. Pons said grimly. The Separatists have started a string of bombing runs on the many towns and villages surrounding Lesu. We haven't been hit, but we need more medical personnel down here stat. The Twi'leks need it bad. Upon hearing that his people were being so savagely attacked, Cham's face paled considerably. I'll be sending you assistance immediately. Mace promised. Stay on alert and get the Twi'leks out of the villages. Han saluted before ending the transmission. What could the Separatists possibly gain in bombing our homes? Cham asked quietly. Confusion and drawing us out is the most likely answer. Steve answered, all too familiar with tactics like these from back in his war. This is a retreat offensive. Scorch and burn up while retreating. So they know they are losing and resort to this, Cham hissed in fury. We can end this now, Syndulla, Windu said firmly. You must come to an agreement with Freeta and end the separatist occupation of Ryalth. Looking towards his people, Cham took several moments to process what needed to be done. Gritting his teeth a little, the rebel leader swallowed a bitter pill. Make the arrangements. I will speak to Senator Ta. The trio made their way back to the war room as Mace called for the Twi'lek senator. By the time they made to their destination, Windu's holocom started beeping. Whipping out the device, the hologram of Freeta was shown. Hello, greeted Senator Ta. I believe you wanted to discuss something with me, Cham. I do, Senator Ta. Cham said in complete seriousness. It is high time we liberate our planet and rid them of the separatist scum. Ta gave the resistance leader of his people a scrutinizing look. Well, I do trust the intentions of the GD and the Chancellor in freeing our people. How can I trust yours, Cham? For all I know, you will want to seize power after the battle. Is the freedom and prosperity not enough for my people? Cham exclaimed angrily. You are hypocritical with what you've just said from all the time I've known you. You only care for your own needs and tendencies, enjoying the spoils of Coruscant comfortably away from this war, while I have been hearing fighting and bleeding with our people. Must I remind you who leads our people? I know damn well, Ta. Will you lead on Coruscant? I've been leading our people here and now. Gentlemen, Steve sharply interrupted with a glare to both of them. While you two are busy fighting each other over politics, innocent lives are being lost by the separatists with bombing runs that is leaving Ryalth in ruins. Now isn't the time for this argument. Captain Rogers is right, Mace said, crossing his arms expectantly. There will be nothing left to lead if you two refuse to work together. It was at this moment did Mace's wrist communicator start going off, to which the GD Master answered. Yes, what is it? Skywalker here, Master. Anakin spoke up with signs of stress in his voice. My fighters are taking out the bombers as fast as they can. But there are just too many. I doubt we can stop them all by the time of the scheduled assault at the capital. Do what you can, Skywalker. Windu instructed. Keep those bombers away from the Twi'lek homes and away from our forces. I'll do whatever I can. With the transmission ending, both Mace and Steve saw the two Twi'leks exchange a series of looks with each other. We must act quickly, Freeta hesitantly said. Senator, it pains me to say this, but Cham's forces aren't fully on board with helping with the Republic. Windu said, drawing some confusion from the senator. What? Freeta exclaimed. Why not? They're afraid that there will be another military occupation from an outside force other than their own. Rogers explained. They have had enough trouble when there wasn't one to begin with when the Separatists invaded in the first place, making them doubt the Republic will give a proper damn in properly helping once freed. But the Republic will help them. Not the way you're thinking, Senator Taw. You have my promise, Cham. Once the droid army leaves Ryloth, so too will the clones. I'll be holding you onto that, Taw. I believe in democracy. Don't make me think that is wrong. Scene cut. So what's the game plan, here Cap? Sam asked as the entire current 6 Avengers stood around a holo display of the city of Lesu. Our main focus is getting that bridge up first and foremost, Steve said, pointing to the bridge that connected Lesu to the mainland. But there's still the Twi'lek villagers in the city which will no doubt be used as living shields. Then how can we keep them away from danger? That's where you 3 come in, Steve said, looking to Hope, Scott and Pietro. The 3 of you will need to keep the civilians safe, while Rhodey, Sam and I keep the fight focused on us. You got it, Cap. Rogers nodded as he continued. From what I was told from Cham's spies, there's a pair of transports coming from the southern base carrying treasure that's supposed to be taken off planet. Not just of material goods, but also their cultural significance. Damn, that's cold, Rhodey commented, earning similar reactions from the others. It's not enough for the Seps to enslave and murder the Twi'leks, but robbing them too. So we also need to keep those away from the city, then. More or less, but keeping the people safe is our main priority. Once we get the drawbridge up, the rest of the Republic can come in to keep the Twi'lek safe. The display soon changed to show the Avengers the strange alien they had seen from the last meeting. The one occupying the city might try to take them off planet prior to leaving. From what I read up on him, Wat Tambor won't make his escape without them, even when we make our assault. I'll get him, Pietro said determinedly. He's mine. Hope and I can probably take the transports carrying the treasure, Scott offered. Have the obvious best way of keeping them all safe. Is this just your convict side kicking back in again? Oh, how you wound me, Hope. I can never think of such a thing. And I have you know, I only hacked into companies to expose them. I never robbed them. Says the man hired to break into Pim's vault. Sam muttered out, earning a dry look from Scott. Alright, lovers quarrel aside. Steve cut in. We all have our assignments. Keep the people safe, retrieve the treasure, get the drawbridge up and get Wat Tambor. Scene cut. The city of Lesu stood as the pinnacle and capital of the planet of Ryloth. Built thousands of years ago, it has stood the test of time for the many millennia that has gone by since the birth of the Republic, to the many wars and conflicts that had plagued the galaxy. And once more, the city in its long history now finds itself under the control of a zealous warlord. Wat Tambor had loaded another ship with the many treasures of this planet, dead set on taking everything that this rock had to offer. Is it everything? There's one last batch heading its way, sir. Good, once it's here, I'll leave this rock. Tambor? A sharp baritone voice said from behind the Separatist leader, making the treasure hoarder whirl around to face the holo transmission of the Sis leader Count Dooku. Why have you not yet evacuated the city and rendered it asunder? ORX's strategy is taking longer than planned, Count. Tambor stuttered out a response. Rest assured, the Republic shall not hold this city by the end of the day. Dooku wasn't having any of that. I want you out of this city before the Republic arrives. Once Windu and his forces arrive, I want this city bombed from afar. Am I understood? Wat Tambor was going to decline as he didn't know when exactly the GD General will arrive. Yet the tactical droid was the one to answer for him. Yes, Count Dooku. Once the transmission ended, Tambor growled at the droid. You will not do anything until I give the order. We have our orders, Amir. Over by the plasma bridge, a small group of B-1 droids were making their rounds. Some patrolled around the natural cliffside, while others were walking about on the plasma's surface. Suddenly, an alarm went off, causing the majority to halt their movements. "They're deactivating the bridge." One B1 droid spoke out, quickly turning around and booking it. "Double time it, let's move." Its fellow B1s responded and followed back towards the capital, all except one of them. Either its hearing modules weren't working properly or was too stupid to realize what was happening. It didn't matter, as the moment the last of the retreating droids made it back to the cliffside, the plasma bridge deactivated, causing the lone droid to lose its footing on a solid surface. Resulting with it falling towards its demise. This was all the Avengers saw from their hiding spots. Steve kneeled down between some rock outcroppings overlooking the city bridge. Beside him were the assembled Avengers, all looking out at the bridge. "So, what should we do here, Cap?" Sam asked. "That drawbridge is the only way to get to the city. Us flying overhead wouldn't exactly be covert," Rhodey commented. Steve silently nodded, eyes trailing over the many armaments along the cliff's edge of the city. "Comrades, I am detecting 2 transports along the cliffside path." "Tap," the Avengers AI spoke up. All 6 turned to see 2 large separatist convoys with several stabs and droid units around it as they made their way to the bridge. "There's your target, Scott, Hope." "Rightio." Both Ant-Man and the Wasp quickly shrunk down and made their way towards the 2 transports, fulfilling their end of the plan. Steve contacted Cham and Mace. "Generals, we have our way in. Sending in Scott and Hope now. Once you see the fireworks begin, that's the signal." "Copy that, Captain Rogers," Mace said, riding atop an AT-RT with the rest of the 91st Reconnaissance Legion and the Twi'lek Freedom Fighters. "We wait on your end." Steve looked back at the droid convoys that were now making their way across the bridge when he was contacted by Scott. "Man, Cap, this Tamber guy really likes his loot." Scott radioed in. "Filled with all kinds of goods here. Maybe we could use that to our advantage." Hope spoke up. "What do you have in mind, Hope?" Steve asked. "Replace the goods with our own. Once the transports are on the other side, we set them off to cause confusion. You guys swoop in and do your thing." "Sounds like a plan," Rhodey said in approval. "Just be careful with the amount, you two. We don't want to end up hitting civilians by accident." "We got it, Cap." "Then we wait for your mark," Steve said. Ending the transmission, the remaining Avengers had to sit and wait for what's to come. Minutes have come and gone with the transports eventually made it from the cliffs to the plasma bridge. Neither Avenger from their hiding spot knew how long it would take for their comrades to finish their part of the plan. Especially since their binoculars can't exactly pick up on their forms, given their extremely small size. The transport stopped midway across the bridge, the droids moving in to inspect it. At first glance, it looked like a metal detector, but in actuality it was designed to detect living, breathing life forms. As the pair of droids went to scan the first transport, neither noticed something coming out from the second one. "So far, so good," Scott muttered out as he and Hope flew out of the small opening they made on the vehicle's rooftop. Just in time too. One of the droids scanned the last transport, sending in the all-clear signal. The transports moved in, and the drawbridge was deactivated. "Here we go," Hope said, pressing down on a button on her wrist. Just as the convoys made it up halfway to the entrance, both exploded from within in a fiery display, stunning all droids and Twi'leks nearby. "That's our cue," Steve said, having Rhodey grab his arms with Sam doing the same for Pietro. "Avengers go." Sam and Rhodey flew towards the city at full speed, while Wasp and Ant-Man began their own attacks on the many droids. As they drew closer, War Machine and Falcon dropped Quicksilver and Cap, with the 2 pairs launching their own attacks on the Seps. Cap landed shield first through a super, flipping up to his feet and flinging his shield right into several supers and B1s. The shield tore through their ranks while Cap engaged the droids in hand-to-hand combat. Pietro spun at high speeds to slow his descent. In doing so, his form picked up high winds, dragging in some droids, with a few being flung away and off into the bottomless cavern. "Hope, get that bridge up." "On it, Steve." Shrinking down, the Wasp flew through the air and zoomed past the incoming droids. Making it near the courtyard, she saw a doorway, prompting her to enter. Going up the flights of stairs, Hope soon found herself in the control room. Growing back to normal size, the surrounding droids became startled by her sudden appearance. "Hey, you're not authorized here." "Authorize this." Leaping into action, Hope grabbed hold of a nearby B1 and performed a judo throw. The act had the droid collide against another. The Wasp then fired off her wrist blasters to the ones still up in rapid succession, before taking out the ones lying on the ground. With them all taken care of, Hope made her way to the main console. Now how can I reactivate the bridge? She muttered, scanning the various buttons. Her eyes then landed on a particularly large lever. It can't be that simple, can it? Seeing the Rebel and Republic forces coming closer and closer to the cliffside, Hope had no other choice but to quickly pull the lever. The moment it was pulled up, the plasma bridge sprung to life. And not a moment too soon with their allies speeding across the energized surface. They each time to get back to the others. Just as she spun around, Hope saw droids starting to come up and enter the room. Or maybe not. Lifting up her wrists, she opened fire upon the coming opposition. Falcon and War Machine flew along the city walls, taking out the many battlements and forces situated atop them. Diving in head first, Falcon bashed his wings against several B-1s, before recalling his wings into his pack and curling into a flip. A moment later he unfurled and planted his boots into the chest of a super battle droid, his momentum and own force sending the droid right into the wall and shattering upon impact. War Machine simply let his weapons take care of the action, choosing to land in between a particularly large group of droids. Throwing up his arms, his shoulder-mounted gun activating as well, War Machine unleashed a storm of metal and led tearing through the droids. Spotting some Droidekas rolling his way, Rhodey stopped firing and flew forward and grabbed one Droideka and violently threw it into another oncoming roller. With both of those destroyed, War Machine returned to the skies, dropping a few farewell bombs to the ground. Back with Cap, he grabbed a B-1 by its lanky neck and forcefully slammed it to the ground. It broke apart in an instant, while Cap held its head. Throwing it hard into the face of another, Cap ran forward towards a small group of droids. Throwing his shield again, it bounced off the closest droid, while he flipped through the air to dodge blaster fire. The shield returned to his hand, which he then used to sweep another droid off its feet, cleaving it in two with a solid thrust to its chest. For the resident speeder, he delivered a quick volley of punches and kicks at the many B-1s. With them disoriented, Pietro occasionally threw many while sweeping their legs on others. With his momentum, he kept going at it with the Republic and Rebel forces coming in and helping take care of what he left behind. The Republic forces in the meantime were sweeping up the remaining droids and tanks that remained, the Rebel forces charging forward deeper into the city. The clones were destroying droids left and right along with Generals Windu and Dai. "We got a ship airborne," Clone Commander Pond said aloud to any listening on the comms. Looking up, they saw a small, separatist ship taking off and flying away from the capital. Can it be Tamber? Might be Coward, probably running away from being captured. Pressing his wrist communicator, Steve spoke. "Rhodey, Sam. Can you take out that ship? We need Tamber alive." "You got it. Heading there as we speak." Both flyers of the Avengers stopped their assault near the capital and made their way towards the escaping spacecraft. "Bombers on the left, Rhodey." "I see him, Sam." The colonel said, pivoting his path. "I'll hold them off, you get that ship." "Copy that," Sam said, revving up the thrusters on his wing pack and accelerating forward. Getting closer to the ship, Sam sent out a few miniature missiles and targeted specific parts on the ship to make sure it will fall, but not crash upon impact. The missiles landed on their intended hits, stifling the ship's flight and beginning its downward path. Getting closer, Sam flew towards the main cockpit and landed on top of the ship. Peering in, Sam let out a slight curse upon seeing a tactical droid, and not the intended objective. "Hey Cap. Tamber's not here." "What do you mean?" "Seems what appears to be a tactical droid is here instead." "Then where's Tamber?" "I'll go find him." Pietro suddenly volunteered, zooming off and started his search for the separatist leader. The Sokovian ran through the many halls and climbed through several towers, finding no such luck in locating Tamber. The moment he descended from the last tower did he spot someone trying to run across the landing zone. "Found him, guys." Zooming in front of the separatist leader, he halted his movements and scared the crap out of Wat Tamber. "Going somewhere?" "You?" Tamber said in utter fury. "You have made my hold over this planet a nightmare." "Oh, thanks," Pietro said in a chipper tone. "I try, it's really a talent." Before Tamber could respond, the sound of a humming lightsaber was heard behind him. Turning around, Wat Tamber was met with the edge of a purple lightsaber, under the owner of one Mace Windu. "Wat Tamber, you are under arrest," Windu declared aloud. "Surrender now and you will be spared." "General Windu, perhaps we could come to a compromise." "How can we when I hold all the cards?" Windu said. "Seems my surrender will be unnecessary." "How so?" "As we speak, this city will perish under the glory of the Separatist Alliance. Hearing vulture droids in the air, Pietro turned around and saw a good number of them diving towards the capital. He thought things were going to be dire as neither Rhodey nor Sam will make it in time. Suddenly, 2 GD starfighters with a squadron of V-19s swooped by and destroyed the oncoming bombers. Whoa. That was close, Master. Ahsoka cheerfully said with a smile on her face. Isn't it always, Snips? Looking back at Tamber, Pietro gave him a cocky smile. You were saying. Soon enough, the rest of the Republic forces, freedom fighters and Avengers, swarmed the area all surrounding Wat Tamber. Jam went right up to Tamber, holding his blaster in his face. What are your terms for surrender? They're unconditional. Agreed. With his weapon still aimed at the Separatist, Syndulla warmly smiled at the Sokovian. Once again, I greatly thank you. To you, my friend, and to your fellow Avengers. Today, all of Rylith gives thanks for your deeds. Ah, shucks Sham, you're making me blush. Pietro said jokingly, though his smile was genuine. Just another day saving the world, huh? Scott said, nudging the speedster's shoulder. You know it. Pietro said, grinning at the cheers of victory. It felt like a flash as many of Rylith's citizens came to the capital, celebrating the liberation of their planet. Clones and freedom fighters were paraded around, yet 6 individuals were missing. Captain Rogers, along with the other Avengers, had decided to remain on the sidelines, not wanting to take away from the parade of freedom. But it was not to last, as many children and adults who recognized Pietro soon pulled him and the other Avengers into the parade. Many cheered louder at their appearance, with kids surrounding them all hoping to get a glimpse at one of the many heroes that saved their planet. Some even had crudely put together versions of their suits, running around making play of their escapades. All in all, it was just another day for the Avengers. Scene cut. Pietro had never experienced space travel before in his life. Then again, neither had most of the people on Earth for that matter. Quite literally, a select few has had the privilege of space travel, his fellow Avengers Thor and Tony being some of the few. But now here he was on a ship, traveling to another planet along with the rest of the Avengers. When he first wound up on Rylith after his last mission with the Avengers went sideways, the Sokovian was quite ecstatic at first of being on an alien planet. Why wouldn't he? Fulfilling a childhood-like dream, despite the circumstances upon his arrival. Sure, he was gypped in not flying to Rylith in the first place, but this was made up for after leaving the planet's surface and traveling across the stars, through hyperspace, and made his arrival back to Coruscant for the first time. Man, here I thought New York was big. Pietro muttered out, seeing the planet-sized city as their transport descended from the clouds. I share your feelings quite well, Pietro. Hope said as they soon landed on a large platform. We all do, man. Sam added in, with the other Avengers nodding in agreement. So where are we heading to now? Inquired the speedster. This GD temple you guys talked about. Not exactly. Steve said. Pietro cocked a brow. Cap. Where are we going then? Rhodey coughed into his hand. Well, apparently, due to our heroic endeavors on Rylith on top of what we've already done, some senators are throwing a bit of a party in our honor. Really? A party? For us? Pietro gushed. Oh, this day keeps getting better and better. Oh, don't sound like a girl, Pietro. Hope chimed in. It doesn't suit you. Yeah, and don't hold your breath. Sam remarked dryly. We're dealing with politicians here. With parties in the political variety, they would seem exciting at first, but you'll grow bored and tired quickly. Take it from me. Rhodey added in. It's not as fun as it seems to be. Steve nodded in agreement, knowing full well how it was like after his first successful mission back in World War II, which led to him forming the Howling Commandos. He was dragged into a party sometime after, and even though he was at the center of attention, there was so much politics he could handle back then before wanting to up and leave. It can't be that bad? Scott asked. Trust me, Scott, you'll wish someone was shooting at you. Steve surprised the ex-con. It gets a bit annoying, would be putting it mildly. But it can't be all that bad, Scott said. Senator Padme is the one hosting it. She even paid for us to get some new suits for this shindig. The other Avengers stared blankly at Scott. Wait, what? Sam said. How the hell do you know that? The pilot told me. Scott said, thumbing to where the pilot sat. I asked him. The team were all silent. Guys. You alright? Moving on. Soon after, the Avengers found themselves landing in a district they did not recognize. However, who they did recognize was Senators Organa and Amidala awaiting their arrival, being accompanied by C-3PO. Is it just me, or is that Thor's girlfriend, or is it ex-girlfriend? Pietro voiced out. Trust me, we all asked the same question. Wasp said, getting off their transport. Senators. Steve greeted them both. Come now, Captain Rogers. Senator Amidala said kindly. I think we are on a first-name basis after everything you've done for us and the Republic. This little get-together is in your honor after all. Right? Sam drawled. Whose idea was this even? Chancellor Palpatine more or less demanded it. Senator Organa answered with a joking grin. He said something along the lines of this weighing on his consciousness for not being able to properly reward the valiant heroes that have been assisting the Republic these past few weeks. Steve's lip twitched downward momentarily at the mention of the Chancellor, yet it went unnoticed. Yes, we can't reject such a party now if it's coming from the head of state, Steve said good-naturedly. So why are we down here anyway? Rhodey couldn't help but ask. Well, to be perfectly honest, we have only seen you exclusively in your suit, so to speak, Padme said. And I don't think any of you packed some spare clothing when you accidentally came here. At this point, the Avengers could not argue with, as all they had on them were indeed their super suits. So, with us providing you some additional clothing, consider it the least we could do in preparing you for the slog you are all about to undertake. Organa said both seriously and jokingly. Accepting their offer, the Avengers spent an hour or two getting some clothing to continue their adjustments in this alien culture. Soon after, they were now in Padme Amidala's personal home atop one of the many buildings of Coruscant. Many senators were already there, one being Senator Ryuchuchi, who had brought her own buffet of food for the Avengers. There was also Senator Freetan Shamsandala as well, with the latter not feeling comfortable in such a particular party. The rebel leader would rather be back home with his wife and daughter, and have a quiet celebration. However, the greatest surprise they found was Anakin Skywalker, along with his Padawan Ahsoka and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hey, what are you three doing here? Sam said in pleasant surprise as the Avengers entered Padme's home. Figured you wouldn't want to be alone up here without any trusted faces. Anakin said simply, grinning at the Avengers' attire. Nice getup. Took after you guys. Rhodey said. Pretty comfortable really. The Avengers had taken to copying the usual clothing that the Jedi would normally wear in battle, with their own adjustments to their individual sets and tastes. Obviously not taking on the robes, but more of the battle-ready attire. Ah. Senator Freetan spoke up, holding a glass in hand. The conquering heroes have at long last arrived. Many of the senators either cheered, raising their own glasses, or clapping towards the Avengers. Alright. Steve said in a low voice, putting on a polite persona. Let's get this over with. The Avengers walked forward and began to converse with the many senators, each member basically having a collective surrounding them at all times. Anakin watched from the sidelines with Ahsoka and Kenobi, all three not denying their amusement at seeing so many of the Avengers seemingly out of place, save for Captain Rogers, who appeared to take this all in stride. Anakin. The Jedi turned to see his secret wife approaching them, and had it not been for all present in the most literal sense, he would have swept her up into a loving embrace. Hey Padme. Anakin greeted casually. Obi-Wan. Padme nodded kindly to the Jedi, the master nodding in turn. And you must be Ahsoka Tano. Anakin has mentioned his new Padawan. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you just yet after hearing Master Anakin talking about you so much. Surprised we haven't met sooner. I hope Skywalker is proving to be a good teacher like his master before him. He has his moments. Obi-Wan said, slyly making Anakin roll his eyes. Sky Guy is the best teacher anyone could ask for. Ahsoka piped up with a proud smile. Padme gave her secret husband an amused grin. Sky Guy. Anakin only groaned. Ahsoka, why? Ahsoka only grinned sheepishly, yet did not feel all too guilty about this little revelation. By the way, Padme said, now shifting about awkwardly. Anakin, I had requested something from you earlier. Did you get it? Blinking, Anakin cringed internally at forgetting about this one little detail. After hearing his secret wife's request, Anakin made his way towards his old protocol droid. Hey, 3PO. Turning his attention away from R2-D2, the droid addressed his maker. Yes, Master Anakin. I have a mission for you. A mission? For me? The protocol droid voiced in surprise. I need you to fetch me a few things from the marketplace. Ah, of course. And I want R2 to come with you. Spoke the Jedi Knight, pulling out several credit chits. Tossing them to the astromech, who quickly caught them, Skywalker continued. Just so you don't get swindled out there. And here's the list in case you forget. R2 only beat in reassurance as he and 3P0 departed from the party. During the party, Pietro was beginning to feel really claustrophobic, so he used his super speed to get to the balcony, which was thankfully empty. Or so he thought. Oh my, when Sandula spoke on your speed, I thought it was an exaggeration. Pietro groaned for the umpteenth time in this party, talking to an obnoxious senator after senator left and right. He wished things were exciting and fun like he previously thought, yet like a monkey's paw, it got twisted around for some sick amusement. Excuse me, Mr. Maximoff. Sighing, Pietro turned around to address whoever this senator was when he found his voice being caught in his throat. Standing before him was a young senator, basically human in all but the vibrant ocean blue skin and weird jet up all these senators seemed to have. Yet on this one it looked exceptionally pretty. Sir? She tilted her head at his prolonged silence. Coughing into his hand, Pietro quickly cleared his throat. Oh, sorry. Real sorry, Oh, Ryo Chuchi. Chuchi said respectfully, giving a small cute smile as her hand was held out. At your service. Pietro had a bit of a perverted thought quite literally run through his mind in regards to the last comment. Yet being a gentleman while trying is more accurate in this case, he shoved such feelings and thoughts down and away. Pietro Maximoff. He introduced himself as he gently grasped her outstretched hand, brought it up to his lips and kissed her knuckles. At your service. I think. I don't know, I've never been to something like this really. Chuchi only smiled at him as she retrieved her hand back. She had expected a handshake, but the action he gave was quite nice. It's alright. It's honestly refreshing meeting someone who despises these gatherings as much as I do. Though you do have good manners for a first-timer here. Pietro let out a sigh of relief. You could thank Clint for that. Who? Pietro blinked. Oh right, you wouldn't know him. Yeah, he's one of the original founding members of the Avengers before I joined. There were other Avengers before you? Chuchi asked, now really curious about the team that had helped her in such a short amount of time. Oh yeah, Cap was part of the original 6 that made up the team. Pietro said, leaning back against the railing of the balcony as he listed them off. There was Tony the Iron Man, Natasha the Black Widow, Clint Barton the Hawkeye, the Incredible Hulk, and the Mighty Thor. Grandiose titles. Chuchi noted. Oh, you have no idea. Pietro said with a grin. Most of them were just monikers on the field. So when was it that you joined? Chuchi asked. Not that long ago really. Pietro said, idly looking up to the skies. Think it's been about 6 months since the Sokovian incident. Sokovian incident. At the mention of his destroyed home, Pietro gained a downcast expression thinking about the destruction and near-death experience. It's quite an experience that's not so grandiose on what almost lead up to our planet's demise. Chuchi sensed a shift in mood. If you do not wish to speak about it, you do not have to. Pietro would normally wave it off, yet the more he thought on the matter, the more depressed he got. My sister, Wanda, says it's good to talk about it. A means of relieving some pain here and there. There's no need for such a thing. Chuchi insisted. If it's not too much trouble, we can talk about it if you're up for it at a later time. I would like that, Mr. Maximoff. Please, Mr. Maximoff was my father. Call me Pietro. Came a cheeky response. Chuchi smiled, glad to see the cocky grin that seemed to define his persona back. Maybe this party might not be so bad after all. Came the unknowingly shared thought between them. And so how did a young lady such as yourself become a senator? Scene cut. Palpatine was alone in his office, reclined in his seat while it was turned towards the window of the room that had a full view of the cityscape of Coruscant. He was invited to join the party Senator Amidala was hosting for the Avengers, but he gave the excuse in not attending. It was for several reasons, actually. One was because of what he dreaded more than anything else in his life. Paperwork. So much of it came across his desk, giving him constant headaches daily. Makes him wish he stayed as Naboo's senator instead of becoming Chancellor of the Republic. The other reason was something that's been on his mind for quite some time now. The Avengers. Palpatine internally mused with an irritated thought. The more he thought about them, the more a feeling of anxiousness began to grow in the back of his mind. They were an unpredictable element. They operated outside the flow and the will of the Force. During his one interaction with their leader were a group not easily corruptible if at all, as the man proved to be more keen in his observations than he appeared to be. And their numbers were growing. At an alarming rate in the Dark Lord's mind. Their most recent finding, this Quicksilver, moved at speeds beyond anything he had seen. He had seen footage of Maximov's skills when Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, showed them of some of their past exploits on his peculiar device. More of his skills became more profound upon reading the reports of the time when Ryloth's Republic forces were blacked out, and suffice to say, Sheev was quite astounded. Especially with Pietro supposedly making a tornado with just his speed alone. Then of course there were those two that shrunk both themselves and other objects with ease, and it appears that due to their shrunken state, they gained superhuman strength and agility. The soldiers of the team were not to be scoffed at either, with War Machine living up to the name as being a literal war machine, being able to single-handedly decimate legions of droids in an instant all by himself. Even holding against his own against the infamous Mandalorian nightmare, Dirge, to a possible stalemate. That winged individual Falcon proved to be just as effective as the rest of his teammates, coupling his wingsuit and weapons with his own martial skill, that had taken out many droids all by himself. And then, there was their leader. Captain Rogers proved to be a man whose skills matched, if not exceeded, that of many GD masters and extremely skilled mercenaries. And that was only his combat prowess. That shield of his was unlike anything he had ever seen, seemingly indestructible, given what he read in the reports. From deflecting and holding against blows of a lightsaber to even powered tank rounds with no signs of a scratch. But to Palpatine, that was not his greatest asset. No, it was the captain's unwavering determination and natural charisma that drew in all to his cause, that may prove to be a greater danger to Palpatine's plans. He had at first hoped that these Avengers were nothing more than a brief appearance, a farce of the Force. Yet seeing and hearing about their unbelievable and miraculous exploits began to weigh on Palpatine's mind. The Force was not helping either, as every single Force-sensitive felt the seismic quake that signaled their arrival to the galaxy. These Avengers were not to be underestimated, and if they were to begin to influence those around them, must be dealt with quickly. Standing up out of his chair, Sidious walked out of his office and pressed a panel on the wall of the hallway leading out of the Chancellor's cabinet. The wall leading into a darkened room opened with Palpatine entering and quickly changing his Sith robes, throwing his hood over his face. Starting up the holo-communications, Sheev Palpatine, Darth Sidious, was met with the holographic form of his Sith apprentice, Darth Tyrannus, otherwise known as Count Dooku. "What is it you need, my master?" "We have much to discuss, my apprentice." Sidious spoke in slow, measured words. On the matter of a new growing threat. Dooku had an inkling of an idea as to what his master spoke of. "The Avengers, my master." Sidious nodded. "These Avengers are beginning to prove more dangerous than we had anticipated. They are a growing presence we cannot ignore. In a short amount of time, they have aided in the Republic's victories with quick and decisive actions that have won the day in a matter of minutes. That is indeed troubling. Which is why we must adjust our plans further than we previously expected." "Master, are you certain of this?" Dooku asked, clearly concerned on the matter. "This may draw unwanted attention upon us when we least need it. Not if we are more careful in our coming actions." "I agree with you, Master," Dooku said. "Yet why must we act now? These Avengers are proving to be unpredictable and dangerous," Sidious explained. "They exist outside the Force, therefore their actions can never truly be predicted. If we are to counter their growing numbers, be sure to up the training on them." "Of course, my master. I am counting on you, my apprentice," Sidious said sternly. "The Sith's plan enacted by Darth Bane shall not undone by some supercharged freaks from a backorder planet. The GD and the Republic will fall. And these Avengers shall do nothing but fall with them should they continue to stand against us." Dooku only bowed his head once more in compliance. The transmission ended, making Palpatine change out of his Sith attire and back into his facade, in order to resume his dreaded paperwork, before going back to his home for some needed rest. The matter of the Avengers will be dealt with in time. Scene cut. In another part of the planet-sized city, a small transport made its way towards a secluded area where ne'er-do-wells and miscreants reside. A place bordering Coruscant's underworld and the main business districts. Once the ship landed, a door opened up with a small ramp sliding out and connecting with the ground. Stepping out, a blue-skinned Derosian male wearing something reminiscent to an earthy Western attire, inspected the area. "This job better be worth it." Following behind him were a small assembled squad consisting of an IG-86 Sentinel droid, a pair of BX Commando droids, a small techno-service droid, a purple-skinned Petrolean male with a cybernetic eye, a Weekoi male, an ivory-white-skinned near-human female with a high ponytail, and an orange-skinned, black-haired female Zabrak, with several small horns coming out of her forehead. Turning around, it was the ivory white near human female who spoke up next. So expect us to immediately get into another job as soon as we're done with our current one. Ain't that right, Cad? Right you are, or... The assembled group gave their respective nods and beeps respectively, as they all went their separate ways.